record this. So we're now recording. So if you guys have to leave for some reason, let us know, or shoot me a message and I'll make sure I get the full thing to you. And we'll get you guys connected. So I think it's important. One of the things that I wanted to do, for some of you know that Greg, my business partner, owns the largest REIT here in Tampa Bay area, but I was doing these meetings for members only, but I wanted to start opening these up to prospective clients or people that I currently manage for, just to show them like the value that we can bring, the other things that we do, that, you know, we're not a management company that's just kind of a one-trick pony. You know, that we have our hands on a lot of different pockets when it comes to the brokerage, real estate investment fund, all this other stuff. So I wanted to give you guys other opportunities to invest in real estate or just, you know, expand your knowledge of what's going on. So just coming from an educational standpoint, I won't have anything to pitch to you guys. You know, we don't get compensated in any way from people that we have on here. So wanted to bring it to you guys. So at least quarterly, we'll be doing something like this, maybe monthly. I am going to have our real estate attorney on next month. So I'll send out emails to you guys. If you got this invite, you'll probably be on those. Where we'll just talk about, you know, ask them anything, and we'll do some updates on evictions and that sort of thing. So if you're curious about that, you can pop in, and be similar format. So probably the third or fourth week of the month, we'll push out those invites. I'm trying to find a consistent, you know, day, maybe every fourth Tuesday or something like that, where you can plug it in the calendar. We'll rock and roll. But yeah, excited to have you guys. Like I said, we'll probably run about an hour or so. I will, if you guys want to, you can unmute yourself and maybe give us, you know, 20 to 30 seconds on what you're doing, or if you have a self-directed IRA. I guess let's do that. If you're not required to say anything, but if you want to unmute yourself and let us know if you have some type of retirement account that you're using for investing, that would be cool. And maybe a strategy or two that you're interested in, that would be cool. So you're happy to, you know, turn on your mic or camera. Chris, you want to lead us off and let us know if you got anything rolling? And I know you're trying to eat, man. Just unmute yourself. Oh yeah, you got the kiddos. Man. Good family.
Local real estate investor and dad.
Good dad. Yeah. Do you have a retirement account or anything, Chris?
It's their money. It's not my money I'm using. No. My Nancy, that's on the call, I think she's below me in this box.
Yeah. Hi. Hi. I was going to talk after Chris.
Okay. So anyways, I've got the whole freaking family here. So anyways, yeah, we're working on, you know, on putting their assets that they have to use, and, you know, exploring other options she has to, once she retires, to get into real estate investment so she can use some of that money that she's got available. So I'm going to let her talk since I've got my hands full here.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks. Yeah, my husband, oh, there he is. My husband's walking towards me. No, we've been trying to do this, and I've called different people, Fidelity or whatever. I don't know. Nobody seems to be able to answer any questions. So we would love to somehow use our retirement money to invest in real estate. My husband's here.
Hello.
He has no idea who I'm talking to.
Absolutely.
It's about IRA, real estate IRAs, an educational program with a realtor that Chris works with.
Cool.
So thank you guys. This should be good information. That's all.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for coming in, Nancy. Yeah. So it's a good point. Just real quickly, you know, a lot of these Edward Jones, Fidelity, some of these companies, if they don't carry these products, they're not allowed to really recommend them. So that's why a lot of financial advisors, unless they are a type of financial advisor, or they own their own firm and they do this, they probably will never tell you about it, or they're not able to. So it's unfortunate, but that's one of the reasons we want to do it. Is it's a great opportunity for you guys to get involved. If you leave a company, like my wife just left to go on our own architecture firm. So, you know, we're looking at rolling her 401k over to possibly take advantage of that. I do have a self-directed IRA myself that I've just only been building over the last 2 years or so. And yeah, so great to have you guys. Richard or Benita, you guys want to pop in and say anything? Or
yeah, I can jump in as well. So yeah, thanks for putting this together. So from my standpoint, similar position to the first guy, Chris, that spoke, dad and, you know, full-time dad, part-time real estate investor. And then similar to you, Jeremy, I'm looking to try and hang the corporate thing up as quick as I can, looking to maybe finish that in 6 to 9 months. I'm sitting on some money, not, you know, in 401k funds, one in my name, one in my wife's name. And with the stock market the way it is at the moment, it's all in cash. Like, I don't fancy getting involved in any funds or anything like that, because I could just feel like it's just going to slip out from under us. So I'm looking to utilize that money, make sure it doesn't like depreciate in value, and then potentially roll it across into some sort of real estate investment if we can do it the way I'm thinking we might be able to.
Sure. Great. Oh yeah. Thanks for sharing. Happy to have you on. Vanita, you want to pass anything along?
Yeah, well, I have a IRA account which was invested in the market, and I need to get out of that, but I'm not quite sure how you convert the IRA into something where I can actually invest it in my own real estate.
Okay.
So I'm here just to get some knowledge and to see really how the whole thing works.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. And Alex, I'm sure you'll cover it. We'll talk about, doing deals with your family members, if you can, what kind of regulations around that. Investing on your own properties, what you may or may not be able to do if you're buying a rental. Can you perform work on the property? Can you not? That sort of stuff. So I'm sure Alex will cover some of that. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Alex. Did you want me to make you a host? Do you have anything to share on your screen, or you want to?
Yeah, go ahead. I was while people were saying that, I kind of got a little bit of a better idea of, just some of the questions. I do have some. I have slide decks for years. So if you can make me a host, I can share my screen for a few of these. It might be pretty pertinent to the discussion.
Yeah, that's cool. I think you should be good to, as a host now, should be able to share, and if you want, and yeah, I'll let you take it away. Maybe just give them an idea of kind of background, and we'll kind of roll into it. It's Alex has maybe a little bit of a presentation, but it'll be a pretty open forum. So as you guys have questions, feel free to ask, or Alex, if you prefer, then pop them in the chat. Be kind of a more not a one-way street. We'd like to kind of keep open and just dialogue going.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's like 5 slides on one of my decks that I use. I think would pretty much kind of cover like a visual portion of some of the questions that were answered. And then I like to do this a little bit more free form than do that. Okay, share screen. I want you to share screen too. Okay, so just a little bit of background on me. My name's Advanta. My name's Alex. It's been a long day. My name's Alex. I've been doing this for about I'm going into my 9th year of doing this. My colleague Scott, who was going to be on tonight, I stepped in to help out. He had some personal matters to attend to. But I started out doing kind of accounting, and then also got into doing deals and transactions for clients. So from about 2013 to about 2017, I did investments for clients. I was, helping clients structure deals. I pulled the metric the other day for something in the office, and in that few year span, I had over 1,300 different deals that I closed or helped fund for clients. So, I've seen it a ton. By no means have I seen it all, but I've seen enough to kind of, help you with all the basic questions and even some of the more exotic ones. Now I do education, new business, and sales for Advanta. So it's a good fit. I really enjoy talking to people, getting to know people, and helping to educate people. So just a few of the questions that were, popped up. I heard a few people say, I just don't know how to buy real estate in an IRA. And I'm not sure if it was who mentioned it, but it was to the point that, if you go to talk to Ed Jones, they're gonna not understand because they don't offer that service. There's a few different aspects of why they don't. Mainly, it's just because they don't make any money on holding something that they didn't sell you. They sold a security. Whether that's an ETF or something that they have a vested basis of interest in. They're not making any money on it, and they don't have the specialized workflows in place to manage real estate, to make sure property taxes are paid, to make sure rental agreements are signed, to make sure property management agreements are signed correctly, to deal with a code violation if it gets sent in. I mean, imagine what would happen to a code violation if it was sent to Edward Jones. It would be lost before it hit the mailbox. So, it brings up an interesting opportunity for companies like Advanta to operate in the space where we can, we can allow clients to pick and choose what they'd like to invest in. Because the IRS doesn't give you a rule book of saying, you can only buy securities, you can only buy this or that. They allow the custodian to determine what they're willing to hold, so long as it's feasible and it's not collectible. It's not a life insurance policy, and you're not dealing with certain disqualified people, which was kind of alluded to, and I'll get into one of the reasons that I like being on podcasts and things with property managers, is that it is a service that makes your life so much easier if you're going to buy real estate and IRAs, to have a third-party property manager to help keep you safe of the rules. There aren't many, but they're pretty black and white. So the way it works in general is that, let's say you wanted to buy real estate with an IRA, you have an old 401k, you have an existing Roth or traditional IRA, and you want to buy real estate. The first step in the process is you just need to open an account. So we get an account open for you, and then you have a dedicated account manager, and you just give them a call and say, hey, there's this property on 123 Main Street I'd like to buy. Now, really past just the fact that the IRA signs everything and funds it, the structure of the deal doesn't change. You still have a contract. You still have a settlement statement. There's a proration if there's any type of estoppel, a deed, title policy. All the pieces that go into buying the real estate don't change. And there's no kind of fancy like IRS approval or anything else like that. If you know how to qualify that deal, the documents for that don't change. And there's really nothing on our side besides just a basic buy direction and a waiver that are signed, and then we close on the real estate. And then just like your IRA would hold, let's say, Microsoft or IBM stock, your IRA now holds real estate. And illustrated on the slide in front of you is kind of a basic breakdown of just how that goes. It's titled in the name of the IRA. All the funds for the purchase come from the IRA. And then all the income comes back to the IRA. It doesn't go to you directly. And those are kind of the three tenets that, if you understand, make everything go really smoothly. Is that the IRA owns it, the IRA pays for all the expenses for it, and all of the income goes back to the IRA. Now, to bring up the next point, expenses, paying bills and stuff. This is where property management really comes into play, is that we're certainly capable of issuing payment for an expense or an invoice. Like if you decide you're going to pay the water bill, if you're paying for electric, if you're paying for cable, whatever it is, or a handyman, AC, whatever needs to be done for a property. Because again, just because you're buying it in an IRA, nothing really changes with the property. It's still going to have a toilet that goes out an unfortunate hour. It's still going to have, an outlet that stops working. It's going to need to get tinted for termites. All those kind of things still remain the same. So we're certainly capable of paying those bills, but if you want to employ a property manager, it will make your life a lot easier. The main reason for that is that you're prohibited from doing any of the work yourself. You can't do the sweat equity. So even if it just needs a little bit of touch-up paint, you want to pull some weeds out of the front garden, you want to replace a screen door, the IRS doesn't have guys riding around on little yellow cars that are monitoring these things. If I'm going to be honest with you, it's if you do that, will you get caught? Probably not. But the penalties, if you were to be determined to be providing value and service to your IRA, are catastrophic. It is just one of those things where they make the penalties so outrageous that it's just not worth it. Your IRA blows up. You have to pay taxes on the entirety of the amount of the value of your IRA. It's just not worth it. Don't do it. The rules are simple. So you can either have the stuff paid from the IRA, you can find your own contractor to come out and do stuff, or you can have a property manager. In that case, the property manager just takes their fee out of what they send back at, quarterly, bi-monthly payments back to the IRA, and you go from there. You can also have the ability for them to sign leases and quantify your tenants. So it's a pretty easy process. To go more into, managing the property, who can and can't do the work. You can't do it, and then anyone that's directly above and below you in your family tree can't do it. So if you have a father that owns a property management company or is a contractor, he can't do it. Same thing with your mother, spouse, son, daughter, they can't do it. Weirdly enough, brothers and sisters are fine. You can directly deal with them. If your brother is a property manager or your sister owns a remodeling company, they can come and do all the work. You need to pay them a fair market value for that. You can't be getting, like a $2 remodel. You need to make sure that you're paying them a fair market value, because then you could get, you could still, I would say so long as you feel comfortable explaining that to an IRS agent, is probably kind of a golden rule to do that. So who can and can't do the work? Any of those people directly up and down from you in your family tree can. But any non-disqualified person can. Kind of coming back to how much work are you willing to put in if you're not actually going to be, essentially saving the time and money. I would just encourage a property manager to come in there. If you're not going to save the money by, rolling some paint on or fixing a faucet, the property management really comes into be a very valuable object in this. And if anyone has any questions, feel free just to interrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alex, can I ask a question? I didn't know if you wanted to hold it till the end or not.
Fire away. I like to do these really informal. So if you got a question, fire away, Nancy.
Okay. Well, I hope Chris is okay with this. Part of what he does is a painting company. So he is my son, and we'll be putting in the money under our IRA. Would his painting company be able to do the work on the flipped houses?
So, and you're talking about this to be purchased through your IRA?
Yes.
Unfortunately, no. If that is your son that has a controlling interest in that company, if it's his company, he could not actually do the work. You could, what I would say in that case is that, use his network. I'm sure he knows another painting contractor that would be willing to, work something out, if you will, to where, maybe some business can exchange hands on their side, but he couldn't do the work. So if you wanted to use, obviously, your connection as him being your son to try to get someone else that can do it for a good price, by all means, it's use your network to help increase your net worth, I think is.
Yeah, because that's the whole idea, is try to incorporate these two businesses together to help each other. What if he was the majority partner and we were a small percentage?
Well, now you're talking, I think we're kind of getting into two different things, which is certainly fine. So let's just back up a little bit and frame this out. So kind of go from the beginning, because you said that your son owned the painting company and you wanted to have a house flipped, and then you kind of mentioned an LLC partnership. Would you be looking to partner with like an LLC with your son, and then in order to buy real estate with your IRA, so like bringing your IRA and bringing some of his personal money into a new entity to invest with? Frame that out a little bit for me.
I think it's maybe oh yeah, go ahead.
I think that's what she's talking about. I mean,
Okay.
I was thinking, if we don't, my dad's got connections with contractors who I'm sure will help us figure out how to make it legitimate,
Yeah. And I tell people that all the time. I mean, rarely is there a contractor out there that doesn't know another contractor that can't, work some type of deal out with that. You just have to be careful of whom is actually doing the work. So
Yeah. Chris, I lost you, but I'll talk to Chris. I assume that was him talking and
okay,
chiming
yes.
in. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, it was. So, and to get into issues with dealing with, actually renting to partnering with disqualified individuals, which was mentioned in the beginning of this meeting, is that you can partner with disqualified individuals. So anyone that I mentioned, mother, father, son, daughter, spouse, you can partner with those people on new deals. You still can't have one of them do the work, even if you are a 1% owner with your IRA in the deal. It's still, all the IRA rules kick in. But if you wanted to come together on the same side of the closing table and do the purchase as what's called a tenant in common, whether that's a partnership on an LLC or actually partnering with defined interest on the deed, you can do that to help, if you don't have the money to buy the property and they don't either, to help kind of collectively, bring the capital together in order to make a deal work. So that's one way to kind of structure these things, is to have, a few moving parts, which can complicate things a little bit, but it can also help you get to where you're trying to go a little bit quicker.
And that was called tenant in
common.
Okay, tenant in common. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm sure the Google definition will probably do it better justice than me, spitting out some legal description. But essentially what it means is that normally on a deed, if you partner with someone, it's called tenants by entirety or rights of survivorship, meaning one person dies, the other person on that deed gets the property. Typically that's done with, family members or husband and wives. That's kind of how it's titled. With the tenant in common or TIC purchases, that means that if one participant dies, then the other person doesn't inherit it. So if you're partnering with a disqualified individual, that's good, because that means that they're not going to get an automatic benefit of just receiving property from that disqualified person. It goes through their delineation of beneficiaries and possibly probate. So that's how that is allowed, as opposed to just being able to buy and sell or use services from one of those people. And the nice thing, again, about doing stuff like this through an IRA is that you still have the control to figure out how you want to make this work. Talking about property management, that kind of goes hand in hand with rental property. You can have the property rented to whomever you like and however you'd like to qualify those tenants. Still can't be a disqualified individual. You get to make the terms of the lease. If you're working with a property manager, you kind of give them the metrics of what you want. They go out and try to find it. I have plenty of clients that necessarily don't go that route. That would just kind of rather deal directly with themselves, and they find the tenant, bring us the lease, and we sign it. And here's another slide that just kind of illustrates a few different ways that dealing people whom you can't deal with within the bounds of an IRA and how some of those kind of things can play out. So, your IRA can't purchase a piece of real estate from your child. You can't lease it out to one of those disqualified individuals either. I had a client that bought a house in Auburn, Alabama. Lo and behold, his daughters were going to Auburn. And we get a lease agreement that had the same last name, female's name, same last name as him. We asked him, it's like, hey, who is this person to you? And we found out it was his daughter, let him know the rules. He did not lease the house to her at that point. But, some of those kind of things, although the rules aren't, again, hard or necessarily complicated, you do need to be aware of them, and they can kind of sneak up on you. So it's good to get a good basis of information on, who can and can't use this stuff before you kind of jump in with a game plan and then have to make a kind of call an audible to figure it out once you've already closed on a deal. If your IRA needs money, that's where the partnership comes in. So, a father's IRA can't lend money to a son. Coming back to that partnership or the tenant in common purchase, if you bring stuff together on the same side of the closing table and partner together, that's allowable with family members. Not kind of after something's closed, you can't do that. And then specifically this slide right here, your IRA purchases real estate and hires your son or his company to perform the rehab work. Even if the individual owns a company or they are a majority owner or the technical term is a officer with a sitting officer of that company, then that company would be disqualified from directly doing the work. So use your network, kind of figure that out. I'm sure people can always make stuff like that work out well. You can't personally guarantee debt to an IRA. And then again, partnering from the outset is really how those things tend to work a little bit smoother. Those were just kind of the few slides that I thought were nice and pertinent to this. And since you're recording, kind of good to have on there. So if people look back, the rest of this stuff, I believe is more or less just kind of just the general presentation I have. There's really nothing else I think would be super, super useful.
Yeah, how does it work? Like, if someone has an LLC, like I'm just thinking from a liability standpoint, a lot of people own rentals and then land trust or LLC is beneficiary of land trust. Like, what kind of things can you do with an IRA for that?
Sure, good question. And then I saw that this slide was included in the slide deck that I was using, so I'll throw it up. So there's, just like you said, there's many ways to take title to a piece of property. The Florida Land Trust is a real popular one just from having the degree of anonymity on the public record. See your name, they see the trustee's name. If we have a PO box, that's a real easy way to kind of have anonymity. Some people like to use LLCs. Obviously, the liability protections that it can potentially offer. You do need to be really careful, though, in the state of Florida. The Supreme Court does not recognize liability protections the same way they do for partnerships as they do for single member LLCs. They typically will side on the cause of it being a pass-through and the owner inheriting that liability in single member LLCs. So if your goal with an IRA is to help limit liability and you only have one person on that LLC, I would talk to an attorney to see if that's the best route for you to go. Maybe some other type of structure or figuring out a way to make it a partnership would help. Okay. But to the question on LLCs, some clients obviously, instead of buying the property outright or partnering together on a deed, will form a new LLC. The IRA or multiple IRAs or the IRAs and the individuals would all become members. And then either the client or some other third party would become the manager. If the client is the manager of the LLC, they cannot take any type of salary or reimbursement for those services. It's just, you're simply just coordinating the actions of that LLC. And then all the rules that apply to IRAs in turn apply to that holding company of the LLC as well. So You can use an LLC to that effect. You can use like a personal property grantor beneficiary trust as well, for the purpose of holding title to that real estate and having a little bit of a tighter control over how it's administered, if you will.
Okay.
So, this slide just kind of represents a little bit of the real basic stuff of like who can and can't act as certain roles within these types of structures, and how the IRAs are associated with them.
Okay. And Alex, what's the craziest thing you've seen someone invest in legally with an IRA? I've heard if you have like a racehorse in an LLC or some type of thing, you could buy a racehorse.
There's a couple that come to mind. As far as kind of like,
or just out of the box, like weird.
Like out of the box, they fall into categories. They happen a lot. So an out of the box, like opulent one, I had a guy bought a private plane. That was pretty cool. Bought the plane, paid for the hangering, flipped it, I think he made like 40 grand on the deal. He made pretty good. I think it was like a dual prop, like 7-seater little Cessna.
That wouldn't be someone that lives in Orlando by chance.
I honestly don't know. I want to say it was down here. I knew it was in Florida. I'm just not sure where.
No, so I went to an IRA event in Orlando, and this guy would actually develop hangars and sell them off, and it was like the numbers were just absolutely incredible from a return and cash flow standpoint. And I thought maybe it was the same guy because he was like his strategy, like small airport he owns, he builds the hangar, sells it.
Yeah,
and I think he's doing it on his IRA, and the numbers were just
crazy. That's an interesting one. So right now, that was a long time ago. One that I'm working on, a guy is financing the construction of a barge for a seawall company, and is going to write a long-term lease agreement to the seawall company to use that barge. And he's like paying to have it built. That was pretty cool. The weirdest one was probably the breeding rights to a bull, was the security on a note agreement out of Missouri. That one was a little bit weird. A lot of like chuckle words on a loan agreement. It was interesting. I won't get too graphic, but it was, take it for what you will. The breeding rights to a bull and seeing actual legal documents with that stuff written all over it was strange, very strange. And then there were the emus, that were collateral to a loan. I guess emus are prized for their something, I don't know what they make, but they were valuable enough to be security on like an $80,000 loan.
Oh, that's funny.
So it's all sorts of fun stuff. And like getting to do investments for clients internationally is probably one of the cooler things that I've done. There was
good.
Yeah, there was a span for about 4 or 5 months back in 2017 where I think I closed on about 12 or 13 pieces of real estate between like Panama, Nicaragua, Belize, Honduras, and Colombia. And getting to deal with different jurisdictions and countries and seeing how real estate is done around the world, that was pretty cool. There's a lot of different stuff that you have to do when you invest down there that you don't have to do in the U.S. Yeah,
I was going to ask, so like, so before, because that can lead down a rabbit hole, but it might be interesting. I wanted to ask, like, does someone have to be, I mean, I guess it would only make sense if someone's a U.S. citizen or permanent resident to have a self-directed IRA. Can someone that just open up an account here? Like, what's required to open an account? I'm assuming someone like from, England couldn't just like open up an IRA if they don't have some way of like being here or a visa or something.
Yeah. So as long as you have a visa that allows you to work, you can have an IRA, essentially, because you have to, if you have that or you have taxable wages in the U.S., you are eligible to have an IRA. You don't have to be a citizen of the United States. Okay. The problem is that most of the time for most of those, they do put you through Social Security for Social Security withholding, because that's a right. If you work in the U.S. and you pay taxes, you get Social Security. So sometimes if you don't have a Social Security number, it gets a little weird. I've had that happen with a few Australian clients that I had that were in the in like oil and gas and mining and stuff. They didn't have social, so it's a little weird getting that open. But yeah, you don't have to live in the U.S. And all of the people that I've dealt with in other countries have been U.S. citizens that just happen to either be expats living down there or they just wanted to invest in.
Yeah, like my wife's from the Dominican Republic, so we want to get some vacation property or short-term rentals there at some point. So So does each country different on, you know, are they paying, you know, someone has a rental, let's say I buy a rental in the Dominican Republic, I'm probably being taxed down there on the income. It's coming back to the IRA. Like how does that work as far as income or being taxed on both sides or I mean, just on the way, maybe on the way
Sure.
in?
So there's a lot of different things that you have to look at. There's a few generalities that you kind of need to understand about investing in Latin America in general. Just Spanish-speaking countries in this hemisphere, you know, between North and South America, have a lot of similarities in their laws. So the way it mostly works, if you're a foreign direct investor, meaning that me, Mr. Alex, you know, Florida guy, wants to buy property in Honduras, they won't let me buy it directly. I can't go down there and put Alex Perney owns, you know, 123 Sunnyvale Way. What they make you do is form a corporation. You have to form a domestically chartered corporation in that country that you in turn own the 100% of the shares of, and that corporation that's domestically chartered in that company can then buy the real estate. So you essentially don't have a deed, you have paper stock certificate shares of a company that you use to buy in those countries, real estate. Now, I've never experienced it with a foreign national, so I don't know, you know, you said your wife is from there, from the Dominican Republic, you know, depending on if she ever had citizenship, you might be able to get around it.
Yeah, she got her citizenship last year, but no, that's interesting. Interesting piece there.
Yeah, a lot of the different kind of nuances will vary a lot, but that is one continual thread that is pretty much through all Central and South American countries. I would just say any Spanish-speaking country typically has some form of that regulation tied to it. I've always been curious to know why that is. I have no idea. It's just that's the way it is. I've never dealt really in like Brazil or anywhere that's not a Spanish-speaking country, so I can't speak to anyone else. But it's kind of interesting.
So when it comes to self-directed IRAs, if you're, let's say, could you pay for marketing out of an IRA if you're marketing for real estate? Like, you know, let's say someone's wholesaling, right? And they wanted to blow $5,000 of their IRA on direct mail or something. But like, are you able to do that?
Sure. Yeah. You know, you can any expense that goes into acquiring the property that your IRA is going to buy, the IRA needs to pay for. So if you want to go throw out bandit signs everywhere, I wouldn't recommend because that's illegal. Anyone that does that is illegal.
Yeah.
But if you were, let's say, going to do that, the IRA would need to write a check to the sign printer, and then you'd have someone else do it. Again, little yellow car from the IRS isn't riding around and going to ticket you for it. But
right.
You know, the general concept of the rule still applies. But yes, if you wanted to do direct mailing, bandit signs, postcards, what have you, to try to garner business, if that works successfully for you personally, go for it. Yeah, just you know, I would. Even if you didn't have the IRA pay for it, I probably would, just so that way you could say if a deal does come through and you're sending out cards for yourself personally in your investment and your IRA, you can kind of clearly show it's like, oh, well, you know, I don't know if they got my name from one or the other, but my IRA definitely paid for some of that marketing, so it should be getting it in.
Cool. What about for the clients, let's say as an aggregate for Advanta, or maybe the ones that you deal with? Give us a pie chart breakdown on, okay, you know, 50% are buying rentals, 25% are doing private notes, maybe 10% are doing joint ventures, new construction. Like, you know, some of those strategies. What would you say the kind of mix is? Rough percentage. Just
Sure.
Give us an idea of how, you know, top 3 or 4 ways people are using their IRAs when it comes to real estate.
Yeah. So real estate is by far and away our biggest sector. Now it's about probably 70% of our business. Is people that buy real estate in some form or fashion. Now that breaks down into a few different categories. One, I would say probably the biggest right now is lending. People lending notes, holding mortgages. That's gotten a lot more popular, especially with things like equity participation notes, where I'll get into exactly what that is if people aren't familiar, which I think those are really cool. And then the rest of it being buying real estate, like buying a deed. Now, that's hard to say to make a general statement about our clients because it really is location dependent. You know, if you're in Pinellas County, even if you're not using an IRA, you're not buying mobile homes here. It's single family, 3-2 blocks built in, you know, the 50s and 70s. If you're in Polk County, you're buying frame stick houses, 2-1s, and mobile homes. So it really depends on where the client is. So it's hard to kind of drill that down. But if you if you have real estate knowledge of the area you're in, the likelihood that it's going to be similar with an IRA is probably about 100%. You know, the metrics don't change. If the deal's good for the area, that's what people are going after.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And you think like notes would be number one, maybe rentals following that, probably less doing flips from that standpoint.
Yeah. So and that's the kind of weird thing, because the IRA really has a much better value proposition for tax savings when it comes to flips, because you can get really hammered on, because you can't use section IRS code 512 to defer the taxation like you would with a personal residence, and IRAs only have real specific things that they can engage in a 1031. Not that you would need to in this case, but the flip can generate a lot of income that you would personally want to defer, whether it's ordinary income, shorter or long-term capital gains, what have you. So the flips make a lot of sense for the IRA. The buy and hold of the rental, although the attractiveness of having, you know, mailbox money is great, you know, the IRA does not file a tax return if it bought it cash. So you can't, you know, write off the expenses. You can't hide behind, you know, depreciation schedules. You know, even if you did have a loan, you can't write off the amortization or the payments against any type of operating capital for the business, because it's not a business.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's people do it a lot, and I understand why. You know, there is a lot to be said for having your retirement based in real estate and just having those checks come in. But the tax benefit isn't as great as if you're trying to flip stuff or wholesale stuff, where you have a lot of transactions, you're getting after it, and you're potentially making a lot more money in a given year, as opposed to that kind of long-term cash flow.
Right.
So
no, like there's one of our partners, they run a big fund out of Orlando, and I'm helping them, you know, manage their portfolio here in Pasco County. Like I said, we're bringing on some stuff from them, and doing some really cool stuff with them. Part of my negotiation with the whole thing, because we're working on some other stuff together, is they're getting some really good rentals in markets like Alabama, where you can buy it for 50, 60 and rent it out for $800-900. And so I'm going to be buying one probably before year's end. I'm just going to buy it with my line of credit. And then I'm thinking that I might just look for someone with a self-directed IRA just to come in and loan me on 50% of it, so I can cash some of my line of credit out. And I think that personally, I think the lending makes a lot of sense. Rentals can be good, like you said. But I think if someone can, the lending really seems to be a good thing, whether it's, you know, 3, 5, 7 year note or something. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like that. And then especially here in Pinellas County, it's, you know, property values are they just keep going up. I don't get it. I just see constantly increases in value. Like just there really hasn't been a drop off. It just keeps getting more expensive. And one of the kind of interesting trends that I saw back, let's say probably 16, 17, was when the properties, they're still continuing to get more expensive, but was that instead of people getting in on a flip, they would find a contractor or a flipper to lend them money to finish their property quicker. And instead of getting like, you know, monthly payments, quarterly payments, or what have you, they would write in an equity participation clause to it. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, this is really, I think this is really cool. So instead of getting like 12% interest on the money and getting monthly payments, they say in the note, in lieu of a interest payment, you know, let's say 25% of the net profits at sale will be the consideration for this note. So you may lend someone $100,000, you don't get any payments, but when they sell that property, instead of getting just your underlying basis back and any unpaid principal, you get that 15, 20%, whatever you wrote into the note as equity participation. You get that as part of the deal in the note. So you get to enjoy the security of having a piece of property attached to a note, while also still getting to participate in the upside. Because that's obviously one of the downsides of lending, is that, you know, you lend someone $100,000 on a property at 8%, that just is, you know, interest only or amortizes at 8%. You're not going to make any more than 8% on that money. And let's say the property went up 80% in value with the rehab and everything else like that, you know, granted you have a academically more safe investment, because you didn't have to take the risk of the rehab costs and everything, but at the same time you didn't get to enjoy that upside benefit. So that's where I see a lot of, you know, the kind of the cool stuff with equity participation into IRAs. And that one makes a lot of sense, because you can get really hammered with that, because that can be considered all sorts of different income. But at minimum, you're going to see short-term capital gains at about 20% of whatever your profits are on that. Doing it in IRA, you don't have to worry about it. So
Yeah, or even I'm sure, yeah, even doing a hybrid, hey, I want to base 5%, but maybe there's a way to structure it where they get a small piece of the play too. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I've seen this as kind of like an inverse curve on that. Say like they write in 5%, and if the loan is outstanding for a year, it goes up to 6% to kind of try to incentivize the flip. And some other maybe it lowers the amount of profit, but you're getting more of the nut up front than you would otherwise. But those are the kind of things that I really enjoy seeing, is the real creative stuff. It's all well and good. Real estate can kind of be as complicated or as simple as people want to make it. And some of that kind of stuff, even though it is a little bit more complicated, has some real cool potentials, especially for people with IRAs. So let's say maybe you don't have enough money, like on the screen right here, to go and buy a piece of real estate outright, or you don't have enough money to get involved, in a syndication or something. Lending is a real powerful tool, especially for IRA holders, to get involved in real estate and really help to start build their portfolio.
Yeah, that's great stuff. That's awesome. As far as like education and stuff, do you guys have newsletters that you put out like monthly? Like how, what kind of information sources do you think, or is there a good, external source of info? Like there's a couple like websites I check into regularly for updated info, whether it's and more so specific to self-directed stuff that you follow, or anything you might recommend.
Yeah, so there's a few different people out there that I really recommend people follow or take a class that are big into self-directed IRAs. John Schaub and Pete Fortunato were the two that I personally know very well. JOHNSHAUB, or Pete Fortunato, who's been investing in real estate down here since the 70s. Both those guys are real sharp. They go to a lot of the local RIAs. They also put on classes local to the area in Sarasota and Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with regard to like just general academic information, if you don't want to take a class or a seminar, Bigger Pockets is a good resource. We are partner sponsors with them, so we definitely look at these things on an annual basis, and they do a good job with the information they put out and curate. A slight shameless plug, if you will. Our website has a great learning center on it. All of our education is free. You don't have to be a client to have a login or anything. There's no information collection. If you just want to go through our YouTube page, we catalog all of our recorded webinars. So whether we have a guest or I'm just teaching a class on, let's say, private lending in an IRA, or real estate in an IRA, or tax law changes, you can go through that. And we do about 2 of those a week.
Nice.
We also have,
I might have to add some of that to our like newsletters we do every month. One thing I want to ask is, if someone's rolling over like an IRA to self-directed IRA, or 401k to self-directed like 401k, are they operate the same, whether it's a 401k IRA that's self-directed, or is there slight differences in doing that?
Okay, I think I get what you're coming at. So if you have an IRA or a 401k that's at a more traditional firm, let's say you're at a Fidelity or a Charles Schwab or Raymond James, or wherever it happens to be, there really isn't anything structurally different between their IRA and ours. It's just that we allow for different investments. Now, those different investments does come with a reduction in the types of investments you can invest in. You can't buy securities here. If you bring over money from a Charles Schwab or Fidelity, you're losing that ability. So any funds that are in your account here, if they're not invested, they're not earning anything, but you're also not getting exposed to market downturns as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But as far as the tax shelter qualification and everything else, there is no difference between those. And I think I have there's a slide of no, I don't think there was a slide on that one. So I don't really think I have anything. How do I stop screen sharing?
I think either at the bottom or the top, there should be a little red button. I think this is like.
Okay, yeah. Okay, there we go. That was
cool.
Kind of the few slides that I had, I think kind of worked for this.
Yeah, no, that's good. Oh, good.
Yeah, it's the big thing that I do tell people is that there is a big difference between a transfer and a rollover. If you are talking to like a financial advisor and they say, oh yeah, just do a rollover, sign this form, and we'll send the money to them, don't do that. please don't do that because you will get a 1099 for that. There are restrictions on how many rollovers from IRA to IRA you can do in a year. So that kind of procedural stuff, just give us a call. We'll walk you right through it. It's not too difficult. But, financial advisors in the securities world, by no fault of their own most of the time, just don't understand some of those differences. So, we try to help people and walk people through it so that way they don't get kind of a nasty letter from the IRS telling them that the tax reporting was done incorrectly on the movement of $200,000 from a retirement account.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions? Couple more minutes here maybe, and then Alex, if you want to pop in maybe your cell or email in the chat, whatever way you prefer to be contacted on both.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for Alex?
Yeah, can
Alex. Oh, sorry, Alex. Is there? Yeah, I know everybody's different, and this is probably not the right question to ask. But is there a minimum amount, or do you have a recommended amount to start this process to be able to start buying properties to start with an IRA?
Sure, that's not a bad question. Oh, I get asked that question more than you would think. We don't have a minimum account balance here at Advanta. All are welcome. The thing I would say though is that it really kind of depends on the deal you're looking to get involved in. A self-directed IRA is a big, you kind of hear about it at first, and if you don't have an IRA, it's a lot of attractive things you're going to hear, like no taxes on this real estate, using more capital. But if you are just starting out, you don't have a very big IRA, you have to think of, well, how am I going to get this involved in real estate? Am I going to have to partner with myself? Is there really a deal out there that is as viable for, $6,000 or $12,000?
Right.
If you have a deal or if you want to do some wholesaling or some options with that money, by all means, bring it over. We'll help you out. But, there's no way to get like extra money if you don't already have a 401k or an existing IRA. There's no way just to take like $100,000 out of your personal account and stick it into an IRA. So you just kind of have to keep that in mind of whether or not that it's a good fit by how much money you have and you're looking to invest. But, I have clients that have started off with like $100 just trying to wholesale and flip contracts, and they've turned it into a couple $100,000. So
yeah,
that is by no means a typical occurrence. I think I've seen that once or twice, but that's just something to keep in mind is that, if you have the deal and you have the money for it and you can make it work in the IRA, sure, it's probably a good fit.
Okay. And again, with the son thing, and sorry, I keep on asking that question.
No, it's fine.
Chris works for Out Fast and is a realtor. So if we bought a flip through the IRA and he's selling it, is that okay to do? Or again, network with somebody else at Out Fast and work out a different deal or strategy?
So with regard to selling the property, yeah, he can help you sell the property. The issue comes in him taking a commission. Now, what I typically tell people to do is that instead of, paying a commission, say, hey, my agent can't take a commission, and if so long as the broker is okay with foregoing and it's not written into their, their organizational documents that there has to be a commission charged, negotiate it into a premium on the property instead of, selling it and kicking out 3% to another realtor. Just add, that 3% onto the total cash to seller on the closing, on the settlement statement. Or conversely, if you're buying a property and he's representing your IRA as the buyer's agent, same thing, negotiate it as a discount on the settlement statement. That's most of the time what I see done. And in the rare cases where the broker is requiring a commission to be accepted, just have them work it out with someone else in the office where say, hey, you take this commission on this one, and then just let me get half of another size deal down the road, and it all kind of works out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. There's a couple of things, like I would say just in a general format, like for us, when we were doing joint ventures and stuff before, it really someone would have to have usually at least 40 or 50,000 for us to make sense to put in the effort to get their money to work with us on like a joint venture. But if you guys so there's some opportunities for you guys with as little as 5,000 now that we're working with this big fund out of Orlando. They're opening a Reg A, which is kind of a crowdfunding type thing for real estate investing. It's one of the few companies in the entire country that's been approved by the SEC for a Reg A, 18 months of due diligence. So we're excited to work with them. So if you have less than, let's say 50, there's some options there. And if you have 50 or more, then we always have options with Deployed Capital Group that we run for projects here in the area. But I would say as long as you have at least 5, like there's definitely something you could do. I would say until you build up to 5, maybe just continue to build it, maybe put it in a mutual fund or just let it save. But definitely at 5,000 or more, you could do something with real estate. You know, and if you have 50 or more, it opens up a lot more options for joint ventures on stuff or doing notes and that sort of thing. You might find some other investors that'll maybe do 225 here or something, piecemeal some stuff together. But as a general rule of thumb, 50 is like a really good number to start getting into more opportunities.
Okay, that's a good point. I mean, I'm surprised it's as little as 5,000, and 50 is not bad at all. So that's good to know. So you can do joint ventures within Out Fast with the IRA. I'm not sure I'm understanding.
That would just be like if we needed capital for something and you wanted to put some money together. Right now, we don't do any more joint ventures with like other IRAs. We funnel everything through deployed capital group.
Okay.
Yeah, we can, and Chris knows a little bit about it, but we could always circle back on that. Or I don't want to.
Yeah, that's okay.
Step on his toes or anything, but yeah, no, yeah, definitely ways to get involved here.
Okay, thank you.
Richard, I think you got something.
Yeah, I was just looking to maybe run a couple of scenarios through you, just so I've got it clear in my mind. Let's use round numbers. Let's say you've got 100,000 in an IRA. Do you have to buy the property outright, or let's say I've got a property out here for 200,000? Can I use the IRA money just for the deposit and then fund a mortgage on the back end, or is that a no-no?
You can. Now, when it comes to borrowing money with an IRA, it's real specific types of financing you have to use. It has to be fully non-recourse, meaning that you're not offering any security guaranteed to the repayment of that note. So if your IRA defaulted on that note, that means that the bank could only come after the property. They can't come after any other IRA assets or you personally. It's just, it doesn't hit your credit at all. Your name is not on that. You didn't sign those loan docs. With that said, yes, there is a lot of other considerations to look at. You might open yourself up to a partially taxable situation with what's called unrelated debt finance income tax. It's not a fun one, and it's not easy to stay fast. But it's definitely something that we can help you with. I typically always draw the short end of the straw on anything technical or mathematical, so I actually know how to calculate it and file that. That wasn't a fun thing to learn. But it's definitely doable. What I tell people is that the type of account you want to use if you are looking to use debt financing in your strategy is a solo 401k because they are exempted from paying debt finance income tax on newly acquired real estate under the plan. So you get to do it and you don't have to pay that weird tax. Now, not everyone can just open up a solo 401k. You have to have some type of business activity that's attached to. So if you flip houses on the side of your 9-to-5, yeah, you definitely probably qualify for a 401k. We can help set one up and you can roll an IRA into that and then do that financing like you were talking about and not worry about any ancillary taxes. But the short answer to your question is yes, you can absolutely get financing for the other part. There's national lenders that do it. You can get a private lender to do it. Just keep in mind they're non-conforming, so the lenders kind of get to write their own rules as to what their metrics are for it. Most of the time, they will not lend on rehab. They will not lend on anything that's deemed commercial. So 4 or more can join for most of the United States is deemed commercial. And it has to be a rental property. It cannot be just a spec property. You have to have some type of rent rolls, and they will look at comparative locational rent for that. But that's just the big guys. If you got a private lender or owner financing on it, which I see a lot of time happen, you could make it work.
Well, so in that same scenario, thank you very much. That's really useful. So let's use that same $200,000 example property. What about if I was to use 100 grand from mine and 100 grand from my wife's? Could we club those monies together and then purchase that $200,000 property together?
Absolutely. Yep. You can do it. Take it down all cash. It's not a problem. You can either partner together on the deed. Most of the time people will partner into an LLC. So that way rent checks can just go into one place and then you kick it back out to the IRA. Or if you didn't want to use an LLC and you both partner on it, get a property manager. Property management can definitely help you with collecting those rents and fixing up that property.
And Alex, you said one of your slides though, you mentioned that they want to do the partnership and stuff, the LLC before buying, not Richard buy it and then decide to bring his wife in for 50% and then maybe this thing. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Does like a 50% share of that house then sit in her IRA and then 50% share sit in my IRA? Is that how it works? Or
So yes, if you didn't use an LLC, you would have 123 Main Street on the deed would list, Advanta IRA, Richard May's IRA as to a 50% undivided interest, and your wife's IRA as to a 50% undivided interest. We'd put it both in the accounts. If there was a bill that needed to be paid and you didn't have a property manager, we would pull the applicable funds out of both accounts and then pay it out of that respective percentage. And it doesn't have to be 50-50. You can play around with the percentages. It can be 70-30, 20-80, just as long as it adds up to 100.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So, but you'd recommend if you're going to go down that route and use spouse and husband or wife or whatever, you'd recommend setting up an LLC first and doing it that way.
So that comes with its own consideration. Now, so I'd say it's kind of a 50-50 shot. If you're doing it with anyone else other than a spouse or someone, the LLC is fine. It makes sense. It's easy because the issue comes in, let's say, very rarely do spouses have the exact same amount of money in retirement plans. One's going to have more, one's going to have less. Let's say you wanted to partner on that property and you form an LLC to do it. Now you're both going to jointly own a multi-member LLC. Great, not a problem at all. The issue comes in that, let's say down the road you want to buy another property. Well, let's say your wife had another 100,000 sitting in an IRA and you only had 20 left in yours. Well, you have to make those capital contributions that preserve those percentages to that IRA LLC. So if it was 100,000 each and you each had 50% and you wanted to add in another 100,000, both would have to add in 50 grand to make that up. Otherwise, it would dilute and inflate one IRA's percentage ownership, and that would be a direct benefit to a disqualified individual.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. That's really useful stuff.
Yeah.
That's good. Awesome. Anything else? Anyone got anything else?
Hey, Alex, did you, and I just missed it, I'm sorry, I had to walk away for a little bit. Did you describe the difference between a trust and an LLC, or
I didn't necessarily describe I didn't really describe the difference, but I'm happy to do so. So really for the purposes of an IRA, it really comes down to personal preference. I won't really get into the broader scope of the legal ramifications of it outside of that. That's a different course that takes a long time to kind of explain. But
sure.
For an IRA perspective, if an IRA is invested in an LLC, it will be the member, and you can be the manager. A manager is not considered a fiduciary to the entity that it manages. And that's another thing that you can't do to your IRA. You cannot act as a fiduciary to your IRA, which means you're legally bound to act in its best interest. Now, with a trust, same kind of thing happens. The IRA becomes the grantor and the beneficiary of the trust, meaning that it adds in the capital and gets all the benefit from the assets in it. The difference really comes down to just the fact that you can be the manager of an IRA-owned LLC. You cannot be the trustee of a IRA-owned trust. It has to be a non-disqualified individual. So that can add a layer of complexity because then you're using someone, that's outside of your family unit. If that's an attorney you use, you're paying them fees. They're not always available. If it's a friend, it should be a really good friend because they can potentially take all of your IRA money. They're signers on the account. They are the trustee. They can do whatever they want. And even if you do have something like a clause written into the trust document that the IRA owner has to have signatory approval, meaning that they have to have signed written approval for the trustee to sign anything. That's a lot of faith to be placed in a small clause in a document for that not to happen. So you really need to trust this person. I mean, it's a high degree of trust for that. And that's one of the reasons people choose the LLC more often, even though it is slightly more expensive because you have an annual state registration, unlike with an LLC, unlike with a trust. It offers you the ability to self-manage that and, not get into some issues where you have a trustee. Like I have a client right now who uses his sister as his trustee, but she snowbirds or whatever people do in Michigan for the summer in northern Michigan. She's 30 minutes away from the closest bank or scanning or printing anything. So if they need a check written, she has to drive 30 minutes, doesn't always have cell coverage. It can make it kind of hectic to do a deal if you're doing that. As opposed to you being the LLC manager, definitely makes things a little bit more streamlined in that scenario.
Okay, thank you. That's how we did it before, was an LLC. Okay.
Yeah, definitely the most popular.
Cool. Anything else? I know we're just running a little past 7 here. So If you guys want this recording, just let me know. I'll probably email it out within the next week or so anyways. And Alex, just remind me if you want a copy for some reason as well. But yeah, thanks Alex for coming along. He put his information in the chat. So if you guys have any follow-up questions, that works. Maybe Alex, just before you roll, what's kind of the setup charges or annual charges that you guys have that someone would have, assuming, and there may be costs as they're wanting to do stuff. I don't know how exactly you guys price it, but maybe just give them a brief summary. But
yeah, no, it really varies. But the main principle is that we don't charge commission. So it doesn't matter if you hit a home run or you're just making rental payments. We don't charge you anything for those kind of deposits. It's your cash on cash return is easy to calculate because our costs are fixed. Now it's $50 for an account application fee. Then if you're going to buy a piece of real estate, our closing cost is $145 if you're actually going to go through the closing. If you do it through an LLC, it's cheaper. There's less work for us at $95. And then most people kind of do one deal at a time. But if you're not, and you're going to do a lot of different deals, looking into doing the LLC could help you save on our costs because we charge per asset typically. So it'd just be $295 per year per asset. So you have the LLC, you could have like 3 or 4 different notes and a partial interest in a property, and your costs would be fixed. You're not going to have to worry about that going up and down. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. I always take a look at it, and we also have an option for value, especially for people, since we're talking about, getting started in lower value accounts. Being billed for the value can save you money up until about $30,000 in value, and then our other option is cheaper. But yeah, it's just you pay for the services that we render. So if we only send checks out, those are covered under your annual record keeping fee. If you need a wire, that's a hard cost. If you need a cashier's check, those are hard costs we pass on. It's $30 for a wire, $10 for a cashier's check. Second day mailing is $30. It's all real standard stuff, but it's as expensive as you kind of make it sometimes. If you need stuff done and you need stuff rushed, we have a rush fee on our fee schedule. I think I charged it once in my entire time of doing transactions. If we have documents in good order, we'll get it done as soon as we can. But yeah, the fees really aren't too bad. And I can send you a PDF copy of our application if anyone wants it. It has our fees right there. You can see it. And I'll also send you, if you want to send it out with a recording, I'll make a PDF copy of those slides so they can thumb through them. Nothing's particularly privileged or copyrighted, so they can go wherever. I'm sure it's online as well.
Cool, man. No, that's awesome. Yeah, appreciate you coming out.
That's great.
I'll let Scott know you did a great job.
Yeah, no, it's I'm always happy. Like I said, it's I cut my teeth doing investments and accounting, but I really enjoy doing education and outside sales and stuff. It's definitely where I'm more comfortable. I just like engaging with people and educating. So
yeah,
thanks for having me on.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming, and I'll
Thank you guys.
We'll wrap it up, and thanks for you guys for tuning in, and be on the lookout. I'll send it out within the next week or so.
All right, great. Thanks for having me. Y'all have a safe evening.
Thank
Alex.
you. You too.
Thanks, Alex.